Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I am now back in Tennessee and obviously didn't get a chance to do that recap video after day 3 that I've been doing all week. I ended up having to leave the weigh-in and get back to my camper, pack everything up, and leave for home that evening because we had my wife's cousins coming to visit, so just had to jet real quick out of there. But wanted to catch up now that we've spent a couple of days with her cousins, and now I've got a little bit of time to be able to catch up on these videos. Just wanted to do a real quick recap of what happened that third day. So if you guys looked at the standings, you saw that I finished 9th. So top 10, can't be angry at that, can't be disappointed in that. I ended up finishing 1 spot higher than I was at the second day, and brought in 14 pounds for that final day, which by far my lightest bag of the week. Still a decent bag, obviously enough to keep me in that top 10, but you know, even though I'm excited about the top 10, I'm really excited about kind of at least breaking the code of Guntersville for this tournament, because I've always struggled on Guntersville, and so getting a top 10 here and having my last 3 events on the TVA be top 10s, man, I could not be happier, because that's the whole reason why I put so much effort on learning the TVA fisheries, is because, you know, I've always done terrible out there. So it seems like we're starting to turn a corner and starting to have some good finishes on the TVA lakes, including Guntersville. That being said, I was really disappointed at the end of the day, because I really thought that I had an opportunity to move up the leaderboard, maybe you know, squeak into that top 5, top 3. That was my main goal, and potentially win. You know, I knew that with the changing conditions, you know, anything can happen. That the guy that was leading, you know, just as I expected, with the extreme heavy current that was happening, he didn't end up catching him that final day. So I was really fishing to win. But what I was really worried about, if you guys watched the day 2 recap video, the one thing that I was excited about was the fact that my main river fish had turned back on. The clearer water that had influxed in had really activated those main river fish, which I hadn't been able to catch the first day of the tournament. And I only got a couple hours out there the second day and just absolutely hammered them. Caught a bunch of fish and called multiple times. So I was really excited about that. But I knew that bite all depended on the water clarity. So I needed that clear water to do well. And I knew, because we had a rain a couple days before, a real heavy rain, and we had a lot of rain just in this region. So I knew that there was going to be another mud line coming my way, but I was hoping that it would kind of hold off long enough for me to be able to fish it for at least part of the day, fish those main river areas before the mud got there. But heading out that third morning, you know, I got up there and immediately, I mean, you could just see it was all just toast. It was all muddied up. I ended up running a couple spots. I just wasn't feeling it, and so unfortunately the main river was just off the table at that point, and ended up running to what was my primary area, but really my plan B going into the tournament. So the first day and the first half of the second day, this was my plan A area, or rather main area. It was always kind of my backup plan, but it ended up carrying me quite a bit. I ended up going back there, and even that spot was completely unfishable because of the floating grass. You know, we had the water rise all the way up above Summer Pool, which is just insane. You know, when we started the tournament, it was like a foot below Winter Pool, and then it went all the way up to a foot above a Summer Pool. So we had a huge fluctuation, and what happens is all that grass, that matted up, uprooted grass that was on the shorelines, once the water came up, it just started floating, you know, all over the place. And so it was pretty much impossible to fish that area. So I ended up having to scrap everything, and start running, you know, a similar pattern to what I had been fishing all week with the chatterbait, which we're going to go through the tackle here pretty soon. You know, I had to scrap everything and just check new areas, find new areas. And my whole plan was to go down lake and see if I could, you know, run into that clearer water line that I had fished the day prior, because at some point I'd have to run into that clear water again. And I ended up running, you know, probably about 8 miles down the lake, and finally intercepted it and started running patterns, throwing the chatterbait around grass that I could find. And it was all new areas, so it took a long time to be able to you know, find some good areas. I fished a lot of dead water until I found an area that I could catch some fish, and just had to grind it out that way, just bouncing around trying to find new areas, and really thought, you know, at around, I don't know, 10 o'clock, you know, I started catching some good fish in some areas, and I was like, man, I think that I can, you know, get this dialed in, and I just need to run into that one key stretch that'll make me, you know, solid, put me in that position to where I'm, you know, I'm catching some 4+ pounders. It can just happen like that on Lake Guntersville. So I really had high hopes, but unfortunately, you know, after around noon, it really just started to taper off from there. I just couldn't get anything going. A lot of the areas that looked good had too much grass floating around them. It was just really hard to pivot and adjust to the conditions. So we caught 14 pounds and again finished 9th. Couldn't, again, can't complain, but a little bit disappointed, to be completely honest. You always want to go for, you know, the biggest check you can get, the best finish you can get, and always go for that win on the final day. And that's what I had in my mind. So anything below the win or the top 3 was a little bit of a disappointment. But again, I'm really happy to have a good finish finally on Guntersville. So that was day 3. I wanted to show you guys what I did, all the damage on the entire week. It's going to be really easy because it's one rod. It's one rod right here. I fished one bait. Every single fish that I caught was caught on this one bait right here. This is the Z-Man jackhammer, of course. The only thing that I have to mention is that I did end up using 2 different sizes, but this is the exact color combination. This is the Heights Hot Craw with a Fire Craw Razor Shads trailer. I ended up using a 1/2 ounce and a 3/8 ounce. I was using the 3/8 ounce in the beginning of the week when the water was low and I didn't need to get the bait down as far, but when the lake rose, I still wanted to get down to that grass line, so I had to go to a 1/2 ounce. So that's the only adjustment I made. And man, this color combination just seemed to be money. I mean, it was just killer. They were choking that bait early on, and they ended up starting to slap at it, you know, by the final day. But overall, that's what caught all the fish. Another thing that was really important this week was the rod. The rod that I was using was super critical for Guntersville because, again, we've got all that floating eelgrass that's a pain, and then you've got the submergent vegetation as well that's actually attached to the bottom. In both instances, both of those things required me to have a good fast action rod to be able to snap that bait through that grass and free itself. And so again, it's the 7.3 medium heavy Versus series rod that I always use from Fitzgerald Fishing for my chatterbaits, and it really paid off this week. I mean, this is the prime example of why I fish you know, a fast action graphite rod as opposed to like a composite rod, is just so I can clear it of that grass, and also because those fish were hitting it so hard, I could catch up with them faster and get a better hook set. So the rod was really important. The line was super important too. I was using 20-pound test Seaguar Tatsu all week long. No need for lighter line, and I also didn't want to lose these jackhammers either. So just never had a failure when it came to the line. I even pushed it a couple times, not retying it as many times as I should, but it worked flawlessly. And then the reel was a 7.2 to 1 VLD10 from Fitzgerald Fishing. Great reel. It's one of the 2 reels that I use. It's either the VLD10 or the FX8, and that was the key, man. Just slow rolling it through the grass. That is how I caught every single fish, and that color of that jackhammer seemed to be the biggest key of all. So another thing that I need to give a shout out for is bassboatelectronics.com for rigging up this boat with the electronic system we got. It is phenomenal. This was the first event that I fished out of the Phoenix, and I got to tell you, the one piece of technology that really helped me the most this week was 360. Humminbird 360 is the best tool as far as sonar goes for finding and following grass lines, you know, finding those thicker clumps of grass, finding those holes and things like that. It was a big key to finding those areas, and also just being ultra efficient, making sure that I'm casting in the right areas at all time. Yeah, I use Panoptix Live Scope. Once I'd see, you know, how everything was laying out on 360, I'd use the Live Scope to kind of line up an exact cast. But in general, the 360 was a star this week as far as the sonar technology that I was using. So I just need to throw that in there. Big thanks to Jason at bassboatelectronics.com. He got it dialed this week. But other shout outs I have to make, you know, Battleborn batteries. I had that trolling motor on a high speed all week, you know, especially when I was in search mode, which was a lot this tournament. Had the trolling motor on high. We were fishing against current, never had any failures, never felt like the batteries were going to go down at all. We had the power pole charge system constantly, you know, adding charge to them, so no problems with the battery system at all. And the Motor Guide Tour Pro was also really important. It's just overall a really quiet trolling motor, and you know, I was fishing these grass flats, and I could tell just being Guntersville that these fish were very attuned to, you know, any noise that they may associate with fishermen. So having that trolling motor that was really quiet was really important too. So there was a lot that went into this week, but those are some of the key pieces of equipment and tackle choices that I made this week to be able to get that top 10. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for all the support this week. You guys are awesome, and man, I just can't wait to bring this momentum to the next event. We've got Harris Chain Pro Circuit event coming up, and so I'm really excited to get rigged up, ready for that one, so I can head back down to Florida where I love to fish. So thanks again. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I'm going to see you guys out on the water. Take care.